When we look at the system of justice, we have to remember that there is nothing more important than the presumption of innocence. There's nothing more important than the way evidence is admitted at a trial. And I think we're learning today that you just can't allow all of these attacks to come in, these uncharged crimes with vague evidence. And I think the court was very clear on the fact that if A, you make a deal, that deal should mean something, and B, bringing in all of these uncharged crimes, I think was quite a problem here. And I think this is not only a wonderful day for the system under which we all live, but it's a wonderful day for others who are sitting in prison looking at the same type of situation.
Do you think this has any impact on your case, on Harvey Weinstein?
I just don't see how it doesn't. I mean, even in the dissenting opinion here, we see that Justice ruled and wrote that, you really shouldn't allow all these uncharged attacks to come in during a criminal trial, and how those really affect what happens to someone who's charged with a crime. And we have to remember that courtrooms are about fairness, courtrooms are about justice. It may not be the result that you want to see, but it's really about the system under which we live. It's a big day.
Yeah, this is a decision, a split decision, and the opinion was written by Justice David Wecht in the Pennsylvania Supreme Court. He said it would violate long-cherished principles of fundamental fairness. Jonathan Turley, can you lay out in layman's terms what happened here? Why did this judge of the Supreme Court make this decision?
Well, I think the court was clearly correct. This was a trial that became entirely untethered from basic principles of due process. And this is part of the corrosive effect of high-profile trials. The prosecutors, the judge discarded basic sort of guarantees of a defendant. Here, an earlier prosecutor determined that he did not have evidence to try Cosby on these charges. And so he agreed that he would not do so if Cosby agreed to participate in depositions. He took 4 depositions. Those depositions were clearly done on the basis of this promise. And then his successor just ignored it. And it became what the court called a bait and switch. And then magnifying that problem, the court allowed these other women whose cases were not charged in the trial to essentially present their own alleged victimization. And that created, I think, just a pileup of violations. This is an example where prosecutors can undermine their own case because they are getting everything they want. This judge just simply let them get away with a lot of these moves, and ultimately damned the case. And I think that victims should be more upset with how the prosecutor and judge did this. If they had any chance of convicting him, they destroyed it by ignoring that agreement and then having these witnesses testify on uncharged crimes.
Yeah, you make an excellent point, both of you. So this is all about the commitment on the part of prosecutors and attorneys who are involved and judges to uphold due process, because if you don't, you are undermining the rights of victims, because you're jeopardizing their potential to have the outcome that they believe that they are testifying to. So this first jury was deadlocked in this case, and that the assumption was that it was over, that was a dead end, because so many of these women who had brought these accusations had lasted the term of limitations, the statute of limitations on these charges. Then in the second round, the judge allowed 5 of them to testify, which Donna was referring to just a moment ago. And then there was this statement that came out from the deposition. Let's put it up on the screen, which obviously got a lot of attention. It was a very short back and forth with Andrea Constand's attorney, who asked, when you got the Quaaludes, was it in your mind that you were going to use these Quaaludes for young women that you wanted to have sex with? And Cosby responded, yes. So how much of an impact did that have once the prosecutors had that in hand, Donna?
Well, I think it had a huge impact, and I think that they knew that that would be their ticket to move forward, and they completely disregarded the agreement that they had made prior to that. But of course, Cosby never would have sat for that deposition without that agreement, because he has a right to remain silent. He has a Fifth Amendment right, and he wouldn't have given it up. I do think, too, Martha, this shows really the pressure of movements, the pressure of society, the pressure of social media, and what's happening in our court systems. And when our court systems at the state level decide to cave to that pressure, the appellate court or the Supreme Court has to come in and say, we can't let it happen. And so we have to remember, courts are really the last line of defense to really uphold our rights.
Yeah, it's a great point. Geraldo touched on this moments ago, Jonathan, essentially saying that movements take on a life of their own. But we cannot allow the momentum of a movement like that, which may incite a lot of emotion and well-founded passion on the part of a lot of people, to infringe upon a judge's judgment or a prosecutor's judgment in terms of how a case is handled, because then in the end, they might subvert their own ability to carry out that case.
I think it's right, and people have to put a check on this sort of recreational approach to trials. These are real victims who deserved a better trial than this. This is a defendant who deserved due process. None of that happened because of this gravitational pull of a high-profile trial. It was the beginning of the Me Too period, and people demanded a conviction. And the judge and the prosecutors worked too hard to fulfill that demand. And the ultimate losers, the ones I feel most sorry for, are all of these victims, because they lost that opportunity because of the corners cut and the excesses of this trial.
Yeah, so well put. We're going to keep one eye on this, of course, because you're looking at the driveway in Elkins Park, Pennsylvania, where we expect Bill Cosby to arrive at his home. He may decide to step inside and, you know, probably take a shower and get his own clothes on and feel like a normal person and walk out and say something, or his attorneys may decide to do that. So we're going to watch very closely for that. But before I let you go, I just want to make one point that, Donna, you made earlier, which is that, keep an eye on Ghislaine Maxwell and the Epstein case here, because there was also an agreement with prosecutors not to go after the co-conspirators of Epstein. So this is also something that her attorneys will be watching very closely as well. So just wanted to mention that great point that you made earlier. Donna Rotuno and Jonathan Turley, thank you both very much. Good to see you today.